Welcome in. Belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman fantasy football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. And it is my great pleasure, as always, to welcome into the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing today, Bernie?
I am doing all right, Michael. I'm sad and happy at the same time.
What's your plight here? What's making you sad and what's making you happy? Let's talk about it.
Well, I'm happy because my fantasy matchup is going well for me right now.
Oh, who are you playing?
I'm playing Amazing Spidey, and he's got a 40 burger on the bench. So, it's one of those things. But I'm also sad because a lot of my analyst picks and future things for not my team were like real bad.
So you were trying to sabotage all the listeners out there.
Unintentionally. Yes.
Fair enough. We do enough damage accidentally, so it's okay. All right. So we have a jam-packed episode for you guys. This is episode 98, Week 3's 2-point conversation. And in this episode, we will start off with some player news. We'll go through the studs and the duds of Week 3 up through the 4 o'clock games. We will also settle into the Week 3's 2-point conversation where we discuss all of the day's actions. But first, let's make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, let's get right into the player news. All right, let's start off with the players who did not get into today's games. Most of these were no surprises, as Cooper Kupp was inactive for the Sunday game, but he was not placed on IR by the Saturday 4 o'clock deadline, meaning there's a chance he might return in less than the 4 weeks that would be required if he was put on the IR. Now, superstar wide receiver A.J. Brown for the Eagles missed his second consecutive game, as did Kenneth Walker. Both of these are Bernie's Team B's players. He seems to be doing just fine without his starters, as Kenneth Walker missed his second straight game of the season. Keenan Allen, I'm going to hold off on this nickname for just one more show, but it's coming, and it's coming fast. Missed his second straight game as he was not able to get on the field against the Colts today. And Raheem Mostert, he was ruled out on Friday, but I thought during the middle of the week he might have a chance to play, but he did, in fact, miss the Sunday game in Seattle. And Jordan Love was practicing all week in full, did his pregame warm-up, but they kept him inactive for one more week. Why rush him when you have Malik Willis playing the superstar role and getting 2 wins as a starter for the Green Bay Packers up against his previous team, the Tennessee Titans, for some revenge? And Deebo Samuel was also inactive today, but he too was not placed on the IR list, keeping optimism for an earlier return. George Kittle, yet another receiving option for the 49ers, was inactive for the Rams. Who's going to take up the slack? We'll find out a little later for the Niners. Also, now for players who left the game during the game due to injury, Justin Herbert, who came into the game with a foot injury and was listed as questionable coming into this week, left early when he aggravated that same foot injury, and Taylor Heineke had to finish the game. Devontae Smith started off pretty hot in the absence of A.J. Brown, but he left the game early with a concussion, so we'll keep an eye on that. We haven't had too many concussions this year, except for Tua, which was a pretty major one. So we'll see what the trend is if these guys can get back without missing any time or not. Also, Sam Darnold had a great game today. It's a monster game, but he left the game early with an injury to his leg, but he did return. But in the end, Nick Mullins did finish out this one. We're thinking that they just gave him a chance to rest as this game got out of reach. And Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, Mr. Red Slick himself, had a great start for the Carolina Panthers, showing all you need is a competent quarterback to let all the Panthers eat. Is that it on that one? That's all I have. Is there any other anything you want to elaborate on or any other news you want to add to this list here today?
Yeah, I'll get into a little Dolphin news here. So, a week after losing Tua due to the concussion, like you mentioned, the Dolphins watched Skylar Thompson suffer a chest injury in the second half. So that was unfortunate, but that left Tim Boyle to try to lead the charge back from a 17-3 deficit. And if we'll get into it, but the final score, they didn't score any more points.
So
They
this
were stuck
reminds
with the three.
this reminds me of 2 years ago, the last time Tua had his concussion issues. That year, they're always like, you need to get a good backup for these guys. You need a good backup. Well, that
Yep.
year they brought in Teddy Bridgewater to be that good backup, and Bridgewater didn't make it through the first game. He was in relief, similar to this year. And
Yeah.
now Skylar Thompson that year was a third-string quarterback who became the second. So who's their third-string quarterback who's going to take over for them this time?
I think it's going to be Snoop Huntley. He was on, I believe, Cleveland's practice squad. He was on somebody's practice
He's been
squad.
bouncing around for a little while, yeah.
He has, and he's got a little more toughness, I would say. And it sounds like the Dolphins might have an O line problem. So hopefully, Huntley can learn the playbook and get some things going here.
All right, guys, it is now time to get into those studs and duds.
Wingman Fantasy Football Studs and Duds.
All right, I'm going to give you a little teaser here, guys. Our dud list is very long, so we're going to start with a shorter list. Why don't you start us off with our stud list, Mr. Bernie?
All right. At the top of the stud list is Mr. Dak Prescott. 379 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdowns for 29.86 points. Another quarterback is next up on this list, Mr. Brock Purdy. He's a machine. 292 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 41 rushing yards. Look at you. Go, Brock. 27.78 points for Mr. Brock. Another quarterback up there. See a trend forming. Mr. Lamar Jackson, 182 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 87 rushing yards, expected, 1 rushing touchdown. Very nice. Reggie, good job. 25.98 points for Mr. Jackson. And then we have another quarterback, Mr. Malik Willis. Michael, he's doing good this year. 202 yards, 1 touchdown, 70 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown for a 25.38 point.
He made a couple amazing throws today, like really good throws, like wow. And then he did what he's been doing for the most part, similar to like a Justin Fields. I'm trying to think of another player, Anthony Richardson to some degree, where like on those 3rd and 8s, he's scrambling for those 10 yards. Like he's not getting a lot of rush attempts, but he's getting good chunks, but also at like good parts of the game. When he needs to get an 8-yard rush, it's for a first down most of the time.
So it looks like a little age and a little coaching up, and he's okay.
Yeah, I think age too, but I think it's a coach. You have an offensive guru, if you will, in the LaFleur family there.
Yep.
All right, now into our other studs over here. We have Aaron Jones for the Vikings. He looks good, man. He's running around all over the field. He had 23.3 points today with 102 rushing yards, 5 receptions for 46 receiving yards, and I believe it was a receiving touchdown. Deontay Johnson. I told you last week, hold on a little bit and watch what this might look like with the new quarterback and Andy Dalton. And boy, there's no reason to drop him now at all, as he had 22.1 points, 8 receptions, 122 yards, and a touchdown. And Dallas Goedert, once A.J. Brown was already out, and he already was playing pretty well, but Covey got hurt, and so did Devontae Smith, who left the game. And after that, it was all Goddard, who had 22 points with 10 catches and 170 yards. 22 points without a score. A stellar day for Dallas Goedert. And another tight end, I didn't even see his stats on this. I was watching this game, and I didn't see any of his catches, but I guess he got him, as Cole Kmet finished with 20.7 points with 10 receptions himself, 97 yards, and a touchdown.
Yes. All right. Next up, Mr. Rome Odunze. Man, these studs sitting on people's benches, man. 20 points. And how did he get those 20.4 points? 7 receptions, 76 yards, and 1 touchdown. David Montgomery, 122 total yards with 3 receptions and 1 touchdown for a 19.7 points. Trey Tucker. That's a name I don't normally see on this stud list. 7 receptions, 96 yards, and 1 touchdown for 19.1 points. And Devin Singletary, I like this guy. 65 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 4 receptions for 43 receiving yards, 18.8 points in the Wingman Fantasy Football League.
He's been top scorer in the last 2
Yeah.
weeks. I don't know if he made the stud list last week, but he made the top performer for their team, so he got at least 13 points. I don't know if he got to the 17 points we use for our stud threshold on Sundays. All right, another player here. He doesn't get a lot of catches, but when he gets one, he gets a big one for a touchdown. DK Metcalf had 18.4 points. He had 4 catches for 104 yards with a long touchdown. Chris Olave had 17.6 points. He finally got in on the action, and he did it when his team actually didn't score a lot of points, as he had 6 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. And Calvin Austin, not the first, not the second, but the third. Calvin Austin the third. What team does he play for? Pittsburgh Steelers. Had 17.5 points with 4 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. And Justin Jefferson had a nice day as well with 17.1 points, getting 6 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown.
And then the Sun God. Oh, man. Let's go Detroit. 7 receptions, 75 yards, 1 touchdown for Amon-Ra St. Brown, 17 total points. Then we've got, Green Bay defense. Somebody picked them up off the waiver wire and put them right in their starting lineup. Got 17 points, 8 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 touchdown. Will Lutz, 16 points. He got that with 4 field goals and 2 PATs. And another defense, the New York Jets. 16 points, they have 7 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and 139 yards allowed. Shutdown defense.
Yeah, I noticed you picked up the Green Bay defense, and that game was so hard to watch. And I was just looking, I'm like, I think they had a section where they had 3 straight sacks.
Yeah.
It was just unbearable to watch. As I wasn't rooting for Levis, I was just luckily, and every time, because we have our 200 yard barrier for 4 points.
Yep.
The Titans kept getting whatever catch to pass to get over that, and you would lose 4 points, and then you get a sack, which was enough to bring it back to the total offense. Like they kept going back and forth, like at every sack. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not going to end well. Finally, they got a couple catch at the end to lose those 4 points for you. But nice pickup. I need to start considering. I had Green Bay on my list all week, but I was giving trust for Detroit, and I'm going to have to start thinking about streaming these defenses.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at that quarterback that they're going up against, I guess. It's not that Will didn't play well, but Will's going to make some mistakes, and that touchdown really helped.
All right, guys, now it is time for the duds this week. And this week, this list is almost twice as long. So just if you hear your guys, just get ready to curse at the screen. Why don't you start us off with some of our duds this week, Mr. Bernie?
All right, let's move through them so they're not duds for too long. CJ Stroud, only 13.8 points. We still like CJ, though. Baker Mayfield, he came down 10.52 points. I don't like Baker because they lost that game. Derek Carr, 9.98 points. Anthony Richardson, 9.08 points, but I'm okay with that. Anthony didn't lose that game for them.
I don't know how Anthony Richardson only had that much. He was running the ball so much, I guess just getting stuffed. And Derek Carr, every time you think he's good, he lets you down. Mm-hmm. All right, Justin Herbert only had 9 points. J.K. Dobbins came back down to earth, playing against this stout Steeler defense, getting only 6.9 points. Javonte Williams, it's about where he lives at 6.1 points. And Devontae Adams, it looked like he was doing more on the field. Maybe I just saw the couple catches he had, but he only had 6 points even.
Yeah, he had a couple of drops, a couple of catches, and then defenders were coming around, hitting his wrists, and those balls were coming out. I had a couple of those that I saw in that game. All right, moving on here. Rashee White, 6 points. Ladd McConkey, 5.9 points. Brock Bowers, the stud, 5.6 points. A little humbling for Brock there. And Michael Pittman, 5.6 points, but that's expected with Anthony Richardson not doing that great.
And this is the second straight week Tyreek Hill hasn't been able to get up to 6 points, as he had 5.5 points. I think last week he had 5.3. Jackson Smith and Jigba only had 5.4 points today. Josh Jacobs, all right, well, we'll talk about it later. He had only 5.3 points. DeAndre Swift, we know he is now officially unplayable, as he only had 5.3 points. Who else is on our dud list this week?
Mr. Alex Pierce at 4.9 points. Sam Laporta, get off this list, Sam. 4.6 points. Jalen Waddle, 4.7 points. A lot of Dolphins on this list, especially their receivers. Tony Pollard, 4.4 points.
I forgot to mention in the news that I did see, I don't know the severity at all. I saw that he was carted off the field. It didn't look in pain. Like he wasn't writhing, but he couldn't walk on his own. So he took a cart off of the field sometime during this game. So check on him later in the week for injury status report. As for other duds, Trey McBride only got 4 points. Zay Flowers is all over the field, but when the counting stats finished, he only had 3.8 points. Demarcus Robinson could only get one catch for 3.7 points. Skylar Thompson, a quarterback getting only 3.6 points. Doesn't help that he did not finish the game today due to injury. And a sneaky start, not to be. Zamir White only had 3.4 points.
Yeah, and Mr. James Conner, the hard runner, James Conner, 3 points. Mr. Mike Evans, Mr. Future Hall of Famer, 2.7 points. Brandon Cooks, 2.6 points. And Ramondre Stevenson, 2.3 points.
So I don't know if he was shadowed all day. This is the third straight week that the receiver, the number one receiver up against the Broncos, you would assume would have at least a good chunk of the day covered by Surtain. And if it's not Surtain, then their other cornerbacks are also good. But this is the third straight number one receiver to have a dud up against the Broncos. Surtain is the man, and he can shut down, with the help of his teammates, number one receiver. So keep that in mind. Other duds this week, Romeo Dubs at only 2.3 points. Ezekiel Elliott was an emergency start. I want to talk about this later. Maybe we'll save it for Tuesday. Ezekiel Elliott had to get in the starting lineup for Waddle away, only got 1.7 points. And Calvin Risky, up and down the roller coaster goes. I knew it was going to be a down day because he had a 1.4 points. And Jamison Williams got put in there, and he could only muster 1.4 points today as well.
Yeah, JMO, it was I was watching and then couldn't find him on the field, or couldn't find him getting a pass that mattered. So Isaiah Likely, 0.9 points. Gus Edwards, 0.9 points. Both virtual gooses. And then 3 gooses here at the end. Rashid Shaheed, hurts my heart. Mark Andrews, hurts Mike's heart. And Dallas defense. I don't know whose team they're on.
Wow. Yeah. That's very frustrating. I don't know if Rashid Shaheed made it into the starting lineup I don't think he did for Fantastics.
No,
Mark Andrews was in my
Wingman.
starting lineup, got a 0, and I'm not sure if Dallas made it in for Paul, but that's a starting defense throughout the fantasy community, if not for our particular league.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Now it is time. Let's finish on a high note here. It is time for our Mecha Studs.
Mega Studs.
All right. Oh my gosh, this list is so much better. Starting off with Juwan Jennings scoring a week high 41 points, 11 receptions, 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. He caught all of Brock Purdy's touchdowns today, and they weren't just gimmies. A lot of these catches, well, some of them were great play design, but he made some stud catches as well, reaching over defenders, pulling it back. Also, Saquon Barkley is becoming this is his second time on the Mecha Studs, as he had 31 points with 156 total yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, including the touchdown that sealed this game in the comeback victory for the Eagles up against the Saints. And Kyren Williams
Release the Kraken.
had 30.6 points as he had 116 yards and 3 touchdowns and a stunning comeback victory for the Rams today. And Derrick Henry had 29.9 points with 174 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, I was going to text you at halftime. It is going to be a Jonathan Taylor second half.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, as he had 26 points with 135 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Malik
Won't you be my neighbor?
Neighbors had 24.2 points with 8 receptions, 82 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The youngest player in NFL history to score 2 touchdowns in one game. And Amari Cooper, one of Wingman Jam selections here, had 24.1 points. He got his points late in a not garbage time, but in a comeback effort here with 7 receptions, 86 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Chuba Hubbard got dropped 3 times this week, but he ended up with 25.4 points with 169 total yards, 5 receptions, and a touchdown. And Zach Charbonnet, like a fine wine, this guy has 24.2 points on 107 total yards with 3 receptions and a touchdown. So we have Charbonnet filling in for Kenneth Walker once again, getting this time he had a dominating day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Don't get used to it, Zach. Ken Walker's coming back and he's kicking butt and taking names. So
all right, very good. All right, we're going to get right into it. We're going to move this around. We're going to get move this along. We're going to get into our 2-point conversation. We talk about all the league's games.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for two here,
He's
Rick?
going for two.
The Raiders will go for two and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Wingman Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, why don't you start us off? Do you have the Thursday game queued up by chance to start us with?
I do. Let's look at this. New England at the Jets. New England loses this one 3-24, putting them at 1-2, and the Jets at 2-1.
So I didn't watch too much of this game, but look, the Jets were dominating on defense. Drake May finally got some action, I think, in just kind of garbage time there. But the Ramondre Stevenson was stuffed. He was coming off 2 good games, and he could only get 2.3 points. So the defense, and Aaron Rodgers looked Aaron Rodgers-esque, might we say. He looked really good in this game, and it was like, what'd you say, the score's 24-3, I think?
24-3, yeah.
Okay, yeah, very good.
All right, moving along, we've got the Sunday early games. We'll start off with the New York Giants at Cleveland, and the Giants win this game, their first win, 21-15, putting the Giants at 1-2, and Cleveland also at 1-2.
The Giants' defensive line looked, it's hard to say they looked great, but they were harassing Watson all day long. He finished the game decent with over 20 points, but it was only because they were playing, like I said, not garbage time, but comeback time. And he got most of his points with Amari Cooper in that later second half. The Giants dominated this game from the start, and they just were sacked. I think they finished with? They had like 6 sacks or 7 sacks around halftime.
Oh, sacks on them. Oh,
that's all right. I know they had several sacks, like between 6 and 8 for the day.
yeah. Let's see here. Sacks. It was team sacks for Cleveland.
No, for the Giants.
For the Giants. 8 sacks.
Yeah. And not only did they get the 8 sacks, but Watson got away a lot just to run around and throw it out of bounds. Like he was harassed even more than that.
Yeah. All right, moving along here. We got Green Bay at Tennessee. Green Bay takes this at a big win, 30-14, putting Green Bay at 2-1, and the Tennessee Titans at 0-3.
Another dominating defensive line performance. The Green Bay Packers were in the backfield more than Tony Pollard was today. They sacked him every drive. They had at least 1 sack, it seemed like, and some drives multiple sacks.
It was also an 8-sack game for Green Bay.
Yeah, and in this game, what was frustrating for me personally is Emmanuel Wilson was on the field quite a bit for the Packers instead of Josh Jacobs. But the problem was every time Josh Jacobs didn't have a lot of big runs, but he had a lot of 5 and 6 yard runs. And I'm not even joking. I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to say 50%, but it was like 75% of his runs were holding calls. So he's wasting all of his running, and hits all got called back. I'm like, all right, there's 6 yards. There's 6 yards. He had 18-yard run. They all got called back. It was very frustrating. Then he'd come off the field because he got the hit. He still got hit. And then Wilson would come in and rip off a nice run. So I don't think that really indicates the workload. It was just, empty calories and not getting credit for the actual work he was doing. But it was all Willis today in terms of touchdowns. The running backs didn't get any touchdowns today. I don't think. Emmanuel Wilson had 1 touchdown today.
Yeah, he might have had a receiving touchdown. He did have a receiving touchdown. Malik Willis had the only rushing touchdown.
Right.
So, all right, moving along.
Before we go real quick,
Yep.
Sorry, let's get in the offense real quick for Tennessee. There wasn't much there. Like I said, they were getting sacked all the time. Will Levis was doing his best not to make the big mistake, but in doing so, he was just holding the ball and getting sacked. He didn't have any turnovers, I don't think. Oh, he had 1 pick six. He did have a turnover. But the announcers were like, we don't want to see him do boneheaded plays. And every time he got sacked, they're like, well, it wasn't boneheaded, but they're not going forward.
Yeah.
So it was a rough day. Calvin Ridley looked disinterested. He looked awful out there today. He was the one who got a lot. His passes were getting broken up. And he was like, I'm not getting tangled up with these guys. He was just fading out of bounds on all of his routes. He didn't want to get hit today. It was obvious.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this guy a little bit later, but Hopkins led that target share with 7.
Okay.
All right, moving along here. Chicago at Indy. This was a good game to watch. It was nice to see 16 for Chicago, 21 for Indy, putting both teams at 1-2.
This game was awful. Eventually, the Bears started to get a lot of passing yards in that second half, and they're coming back. But both teams would drive down the field if they were lucky, and then turn the ball over.
Yeah,
there were interceptions and fumbles at the goal line, in the end zone, and at the 5-yard line so many times today. Richardson kept trying to pile drive people. He's jamming his shoulder. He looked like a monster man, but he didn't go anywhere. He'd drive the first hit to fall forward a yard, but they were 5 yards back each time. He got stopped and stuffed a lot of times towards the end zone. And I don't know why Chicago, I don't know why they gave up on the run, because Indianapolis is not going to run away from you. They're going to make mistakes. Anthony Richardson gives the ball back all the time. And when they finally gave the ball to Jonathan Taylor, that's when they started to pull away. That first half, I think they were first and goal after a fumble, and they didn't give it to Taylor once. Nope. And when I was going to halftime, I'm like, they're going to come out of here, and Richardson's not. You were saying Richardson's like a ball hog. When they do the RPOs, he keeps it every single time. That's the first time I noticed. I'm like, give it to the other guy, for crying out loud. It's starting to get frustrating. And I know you have Taylor, so in this instance, I was like, whatever. But it was very obvious. And then when they came out of halftime, I'm like, they're going to give it to Taylor the first 3 carries. And Richardson kept it again and threw an interception on the first drive. After that, though, it was all Taylor.
Yeah, both quarterbacks threw 2 interceptions apiece. And Sermon was the back that you're talking about that was trying to get in. Sermon and Richardson were trying to get into the end zone on that inside the 5.
Sermon finally got in, but I think it was the one where like the whole team like pushed him in.
All pushed him in. Yep.
The Bears stopped pushing because they held him up for like 2 seconds, and then as they relaxed, 12 guys just came and shoved the whole scrum forward.
Yep.
But I do want to mention real quick, Adunze was getting targeted on the deep ball quite a bit today.
Oh yeah, the timing was a little off at the beginning, but I saw that it looked good.
All right, what else?
It's gonna be something there. All right, we're moving on.
Oh wait, sorry. We have to mention, because we mentioned DeAndre Swift was a potential sneaky start. You were right. Khalil Herbert got the goal line carries, did not get in. He got stuffed. But Swift was awful as usual. At least he's been this year. He started to lose work. They put Roshan Johnson in a lot more towards as the game was moving along. DeAndre Swift is easily unplayable. This was a matchup to target. If you can't do it here, when you're going to play him?
Exactly. All right, moving to Houston at Minnesota. Minnesota stays undefeated. That's a 7-34 score. Minnesota wins, putting Houston at 2-1 and Minnesota at 3-0.
Minnesota is just so balanced. When you have a pass catching, that's why I like Aaron Jones so much. He's a powerful enough guy. I wouldn't say power is his strength, but he's, compared to other running backs, he's not a weak running back. He's a big guy. Yeah. He's also fast when it's in the open field, but he's a great receiver. He caught, with Aaron Rodgers, he used to do this. One of his receptions was downfield over the shoulder, or either jumped back and jumped over the deep linebacker, most likely. But he catches contested long catches for a running back. That's pretty rare. And he does it, relatively speaking, all the time. He's such a good player when you have these type of, I'm just for lack of a better phrase, San Francisco style offenses where you need like a lot of people to be able to do a lot of things all over the field. And if you see a matchup, he's like, I got this guy. We're going to take him to that spot of the field and get the most out of it.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Sombrero, he did have a 20-yard was his long reception.
Yeah. What'd you see on the other side of this ball here? They weren't scoring any points today. They didn't score until late in the game, the Houston Texans.
Yeah, it was stale. It was like you know what? They played their game and they played it well. I think the credit goes to Minnesota on this. I think if the NFL comes out with their power rankings on Tuesday, Minnesota needs to be number 1 in the power ranking for normal NFL play, not fantasy play. And
what allows them to be so balanced on offense is that their defense is really controlling these games. They're really shutting down. They've shut down San Francisco. They've shut down Houston, who coming to this was a good offense. I forget their first game was the Giants, so that one doesn't matter so much offensive wise. But they're shutting down everyone they played so far.
Yeah, and it's not like the Stroud wasn't doing good. I mean, Stephon Diggs had 94 yards. Nico Collins had 86 yards. Tank Dell had 62 yards receiving. They were doing it. They couldn't get the running game going, and that probably had a lot to do with Mr. Mixon being out, which might have been the key to this, because Cam Akers only had 8 carries for 21 yards.
All right, what else we got?
All right, moving along here. We got Philly at New Orleans. Whew, this was a shocker. Philly 15, New Orleans 12. That puts both teams at 2-1.
So I had this game on, obviously. I had the screen split in 4, so I'm kind of, my attention's on other parts of the screen than other ones, but this one was in front of me the whole time as well. And I'm looking around, I'm like, Hurts looks great today. He's hitting guys in stride. I felt like when there was pressure, he was avoiding it and getting his little scrambles, not for like big plays, but like everything I saw him do was positive. Everything was positive. He had one interception or fumble, and I think his own guy kicked it out of his hand or something. No, he had one fumble when he was scrambling away. But other than that, he was doing well. And I looked at the score. I'm like, it's 3-zip into the third quarter, late in the third quarter. I don't know. All the yards I was seeing was not finishing off with points. But they just stuck with it, and they let Saquon Barkley finish off this game. And he, after approximately a 56-yard touchdown run that I think took the lead at that point, and then New Orleans scored again on an Olave touchdown, and then Barkley did it again and took his second touchdown of the game to take the last lead, and that was enough to take this one down.
Yeah, as far as their stats go, to have your top running back with 147 yards and your top receiver at 170 yards, you definitely should not lose that game.
And Kamara looked good as always. He just didn't get in the end zone this time, or it would have been a much bigger day for him as well.
Yeah, and Derek Carr look average, like you said earlier. He's going to let you down. So I think the big missing piece here was Mr. Rashid Shaheed. No receptions, no yards. He had 5 targets though.
Oh wow!
So he was second on the target share. He just couldn't get that connection going. So maybe who's the defender on Philly? Is it Slay?
I don't know if he's still there, to be honest with you. I'm not sure.
No, maybe it's not Slay then. Okay.
Generally speaking, Philly's always been, and even this year's been the same, not up to the same differential, but they've always been a better run defense than pass defense.
Right.
And this year's been the same as well, but I don't know if it just might have been who they've been playing against, kind of thing.
Yeah, Darius Slay, he's still on.
Okay.
Philly. Yeah. All right, so moving on. Anything else for this one?
I don't think so. I don't. No, we're good.
We're good. Okay. All right. Next one, we're going over to Pittsburgh. LA Chargers at Pittsburgh. Excuse me. Chargers 10, Steelers 20. Puts the Chargers at 2-1, and the Steelers undefeated with Justin Fields at the helm, 3-0.
And this was Justin Fields' best. He's had moments, and he's never been bad. He's been like a game manager with some splash plays here and there, but this was his best all-around game, I think, in terms of passing and running, and he still didn't make the mistakes, and he's not making the mistakes. He's doing awesome in that regard. And the Steelers are just like, their coaching / discipline, if you want to say their culture as a Heat fan, we know what that is over there. Mm-hmm. But like their culture will take up the margins. If you can just keep it close, the Steelers always win way more games than they're supposed to. They're actually healthy this year on defense at the moment. That's always been their downfall too. When because they only have a couple superstars. TJ Watt was in the backfield all day again today. I don't know if he got any sacks or anything, but he was causing havoc. He was hitting Herbert. I saw Herbert get hit a couple times even before he left. I'm like, oh, he's not going to finish this game. He's getting hit hard, and that's what those Steelers defense do. They hit you hard. Yeah,
Watt did have one sack today. And you know who I saw running around? I saw Joey Porter Jr. running around a lot today. So that defense is healthy, and they're fast, and they're good. Justin Fields, he the key stat that I'm looking at here, he only had 2 sacks and only lost 13 yards. So he kept it positive,
right,
moving forward as much as he could.
And as for in weeks past, even though J.K. Dobbins has been filling up the stat sheet, the carries have been pretty even between him and Gus Edwards. I believe Gus Edwards only had 3 carries today for the 9 yards. J.K. Dobbins did not get as much work because they were down, and with Herbert out there, their confidence changed, and they're playing as a great defensive line. So how many carries did Dobbins have? Maybe 12 or 14?
He had 15 carries for 44 yards.
Yeah, so he got as many carries as he's been getting because he hasn't been getting the 25 carries. The team's been running for 30 times, but they've been splitting it 15-15, 18-13, give or take. But this week they only got 19 carries as a team then, or whatever, approximately, with 15 for Dobbins and only 3 for Edwards. So Dobbins is definitely taking over as the lead back, which we kind of already thought, but now it's in terms of carries and playing time on the field.
Yeah, and I believe did Justin Herbert leave the game and
he did
end up in a boot?
He was wearing a walking boot out, after the game.
Yeah, and so they had Heineke in 2 for 2 for 24 yards. At least he didn't throw an interception.
All right, let's keep it moving.
All right. Next, we're going. Oh, this was a tough one for me to watch. Denver at Tampa Bay. Denver gets their first win, 26-7, putting them at 1-2, and Tampa Bay back down to earth, 2-1.
Denver came out of this one firing. They scored in their first 2 or 3 drives. They definitely scored in their first drive. Bo Nix, He still had a couple of those plays where I saw him try to run away from somebody, and he like I said, he can't quite get away and turn the corner to throw it away. But as long as he doesn't run backwards first, he's fast. He had a couple of good runs today. He scored the first touchdown of the game. He also had another big run for about, I'm going to guess 30 yards. Was probably more like 21 or 18, but it seemed like
22.
a long, what, 23?
22.
Yeah, he had a nice long run down the middle of the field. He kept the chains moving. I don't think they got sacked too much today, not that I saw.
No sacks, no interceptions.
Yep, there you go. So he was and that would be the other streaming defense coming into this week. You're like, all right, Bo Nix gives it up a lot. So if you went Tampa Bay instead of Green Bay, that was the wrong play, as Green Bay was dominating, and Tampa Bay, I don't think they did too much at all on defense.
Yeah, they did. They definitely did not.
Chris Godwin did score again for, I believe that's a third straight game with a touchdown. So he's still playing well, but Baker Mayfield did not have enough to spread around today.
No, and just a surprising note on the rushing side of Tampa Bay, Bucky Irving leads with 9 carries for 70 yards over Rashad White, 6 carries.
Rashad White had one play. I don't know if it was a reception or not, because he was in the middle of like where I saw the play start from, was like in the middle of the line, maybe like just like a center screen, and he was just zigzagging back and forth. I was like, how's he not down yet? He didn't get too far forward, but he was surviving the play for quite a long time. It was kind of fun to see.
All right, let's move along here. That was the slate for the early games. Now the Sunday afternoon games, we have another big upset. Carolina at Las Vegas. Carolina wins this one 36-22, putting both teams at 1-2.
Oh my God. All right, little side here. Rashi Rice is killing me. I'm getting very angry. He just keeps catching. He's the only one catching stuff. All right. Anyway, so yeah, Carolina, they looked like a team. They look like an NFL offense. They just did everything they needed to do. They controlled this game.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was due to the score or not, but Aiden O'Connell did come in for Minshew and had several attempts. I think 11 attempts, give or take. So it wasn't just like the last drive. I didn't watch the end. That game was, out of hand, so it wasn't worth staring at the Panthers. But all their named players, Thielen caught a touchdown. Deontay Johnson had a nice game. And Chuba Hubbard finished with a ton of yards. I think he might have scored 2. I forget. He made our list, but he had a great game as well. And Miles Sanders even scored a touchdown, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, so Miles Sanders did have the rushing touchdown. Chuba Hubbard he was 21 for 114 on the ground, but no rushing touchdown. But he did have 5 for 55 and a receiving touchdown.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Andy Dalton was awesome today. I don't know how that's going to, play going forward, if it's just a change of it. But last year he came in, played only one start, and I think they lost that game still. I'm not positive, but he had 27 fantasy points last year. I'm not sure what he ended up this year, but probably around that 24 mark, give or take. So once again, Andy Dalton, you don't want him over other quarterbacks, but you want him over the worst ones, and Bryce Young just isn't good enough right now for whatever reason. But Andy Dalton, he's a pro. He's a pro. He's been doing this for a long time. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I think that's where the savvy veteran comes in, where he is not afraid to make the throws, but he's also smart with the ball, and that keeps them alive. And I think he lit the fire. His red hair lit that fire under the Carolina Panthers.
They were showing him because they were playing the Raiders, and when he was in Cincinnati, I can't remember. Forget the guy's name all of a sudden. His head coach, who's a head coach forever. Oh my gosh, I'm so upset with myself right now. The head coach at for Cincinnati for most of his time there is now a special assistant for the Raiders. So they're just showing like, what's that?
Is it Marvin Lewis?
Yes. Thank you. So they were just showing like videos of them on the field, like pregame in Cincinnati and pregame today. And they both look pretty much the same. I mean, Marvin Lewis is an old guy, but he's similar. You got older guy with a cap, looks the same, but I'm surprised how good Andy Dalton looks at this stage, man. He's doing good.
His arm looks good too. He had to throw some.
I didn't get that far, man. There's that I was hypnotized by that coiffed red hair, man.
And that's how those redheads do it to you. All right, moving along here. Let's get out of that conversation.
Okay,
Baltimore at Dallas. Baltimore wins this one. They needed this win, and they got this win, 28-25, putting both teams at 1-2.
So similar to the I don't know, was it last week, the Raiders versus Ravens, where they got up by about the same margin, and they just let the other team come back. This one got a little dicey. If they would have stopped them one more time, they would have got the ball back. Brandon Aubrey had a 65-yard kick. He nailed it. Also had a 53-yard kick. Yeah. He's awesome.
He is
For the
awesome.
third straight week, he's my highest scoring player. Oh, no, actually, Mahomes passed him finally. But Aubrey's amazing. If they weren't down by so much, he would have a lot more chances to kick field goals. But Dallas they were out of sync. They finally got it going when it was comeback time, but they looked shell shocked in that first half.
Oh yeah, they sure did. I don't know what was going on there. That Ravens defense, I guess that, like you said, the first half of games, the Ravens defense just shows up and they run out of gas by the second half.
Derrick Henry had a monster game today. He's still not great at closing out the games. Oh, I think Rashee Rice might be banged up here. Sorry. But he did get 2 touchdowns in the second half, so he did better this time than in that Raiders game. But there were still like a bunch of drives went 3 and out because he's not that big play guy. You can give it to him and get 6 yards right away unless he's like rumbling.
Yeah, and for defenses coming in against Baltimore, I don't know if they just don't realize it, but total rushing yards as a team, Baltimore had 274 total rushing yards with 3 touchdowns. Their receiving, they did great. I mean, 182 yards, I guess, with 1 touchdown on the receiving side by Rashad Bateman. But I mean, they're gonna run the ball. That's just what they're gonna do.
And to ice that game, Jackson had some good runs. A couple, I think he had one because they weren't getting first downs, but they only needed to get 1 or 2 to close this game out. And the 1 or 2 they got were really nice plays by Lamar Jackson. One, I think he was going to do a pitch, and the guy wasn't looking, or it was a bad snap, or there's a cross up. He went to look to do a screen pass, and no one was there, and he just ran up and got the 6 yards he needed for a first down. And at the end, they had an RPO where they had the guy he was going to hand it off to was running a sweep style. He was running to the outside run, and he walked with him as far as he could and then pulled it back and ran right up the middle for that 7 yards for the first down. And that was the first down that ended the game where they could kneel out the rest of the game.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next game we have up here is San Francisco at the Rams. 49ers lose this one 24-27, putting both teams at 1-2.
This one was interesting. This game, the script was how I thought in the beginning. I was hoping Mason would get those first 2 scores, but it was Jawan Jennings who got him up those 14-zip right away, or 14-3, whatever it was. Maybe it was 14-7. But they scored 2 scores in their first 2 or 3 drives, and I was hoping
it was 14-7. You're right.
Yeah. I was hoping it would be the running back to set the stage. But even then, when Jawan Jennings got those first 2 ones, I'm like, all right, we're going to salt this game away with Jordan Mason. And to the Rams' credit, when they were down, they stuck with the run. They knew they were depleted in the receiving core. They weren't looking to... We're not going to win by outscoring these guys. We got to control the clock. And they stuck with Kyren Williams all day long, and eventually they started to wear down on the defensive line of the Niners, and Kyren Williams became a stud by the end of this game, had 3 touchdowns, no passing touchdowns for Stafford, if I'm not mistaken. So it seemed like the team that was up, who you think would be running, was passing, and the team that was down, you thought would be passing, was running. It was very odd, and the strategies the guys had. Like I said, much credit to those teams that stick with the run when they're like, there's 40 minutes left. We don't have to come back all right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you can impose your will on the run, eventually those runs get easier and easier.
All right. One correction on you. One of Kyren Williams' touchdowns, one of his 3 touchdowns.
Was a receiving touchdown?
Was a receiving touchdown.
Okay, fair enough. I knew he scored the 3, and I knew they only had 3. Fair enough. Gotcha.
Yep. So, yeah. And Stafford looked good.
He had a couple really good throws where he was dropping him over the linebackers, but having him sink down fast in front of the safeties. Yeah. There was one, I think it was Tutu Atwell, was going to the sideline, but the angle, there was no way this ball should have gotten through past the diving defender. He just threw a laser to the sideline and just outpaced the dive of the well covering cornerback. He had a lot of good throws today.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to, this is a good one. All of the Dolphin fans that I know are converting to Detroit Lions fans. Detroit at Arizona. Detroit wins this one 20-13, putting Detroit at 2-1 and Arizona at 1-2.
Detroit is playing. So last year, I don't know what golf stats were. They didn't have too many touchdowns passing. I think most of the stuff was on the ground today. You could double check me there, but
two passing touchdowns.
Oh, he did? Okay. Yeah. Nonetheless, last year golf had decent stats by the end of the year because their defense was not good enough. They had to score to stay in those games.
Yep.
But you you would assume Dan Campbell's style just by the way he acts and talks and stuff. If they can dominate the game on the ground and the trenches, defensive line, offensive line, he'd prefer to do that. And with the 2 stud running backs, Montgomery looked awesome today.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was the power runner, and he was getting big runs. With them dominating the running game, they just salt away the clock. They keep the other team's offense off the field, and when they're on the field, their defensive line is good enough to cause havoc. They're not great, but they're getting better each year, and they're winning these games by ball control and running game. Goff is that game manager. He's not going to be that 28-point scorer like last year. He's going to be your 13 to 19 points, depending on how the game's going.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if he's in the dome or not because he's just going to do what he needs to do to win.
Marvin Harrison did get another touchdown today, though.
Yes, he did. Good on you, Marvin. 5 for 64 and the touch.
I didn't watch too much of this game, but it seemed like the offense for Arizona was not doing too much as Murray had just a pedestrian game today.
He did. He only rushed for 5. He only rushed 5 times for 45 yards. He did scramble a lot and he did throw a lot for what I saw. But the big thing for me on this game was that David Montgomery, he took control and really and showed who he was.
And this is the first team that's slowed down James Sweetfeet Connor.
It is. He did rush for where James Conner. He rushed for 9 carries for 17 yards. So that was a huge deal there. Kyler Murray can't be your leading rusher and win games here.
Right.
Yeah. All right. And last game on the list here for the Sunday afternoon games. Sad Miami at Seattle. Miami 3, Seattle 24, putting Miami at 1-2, and Seattle in contention for that number 1 power ranking with Minnesota.
Is Seattle 3-0?
Seattle is 3-0.
Wow.
Yeah.
They had that overtime game, so I was like, they didn't dominate every game, but that's right. They had that overtime win against the Patriots. So yes, once again, they start off with an early long touchdown to DK Metcalf, set the table there, and they just another balanced team. Geno Smith is good when he doesn't have to be the main guy. He can hit those throws. You just don't want him throwing it 40 times. I don't know what he ended up with, but like he's good in the play action, for example. He's a really good play action passer. So they can establish the run. And Charbonnet, I didn't watch him on the field, but his stats were much better than last week. So I'm assuming, how many carries to yards did he have? I'm sure he had an average closer to 4.5 yards this week.
Yeah, 18 carries, 91 yards for an average of 5.1 and 2 touchdowns. So he looked good.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Yeah. So they're getting themselves set up, and with the 49ers at 1-2, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and now the Rams at 1-2 with this win, they are and the Cardinals at 1-2, right?
Yep.
So they've got a nice 2-game lead to start the season. That's going to be it's a nice little head start. I mean, there's a lot of games to go, but that's a nice head start to have against those teams.
Yeah, for sure. Seattle looks like a powerhouse, and their defense is doing something right. They didn't really have to do too much against this Miami offense. And if you're holding on to those Miami players, it might be time to start looking, maybe some 75 cent on the dollar trade options, because we don't know what this quarterback situation is going to be. So good luck.
I will say, potentially promising sign is that Tua traveled. So not only did he travel the game, but that's the farthest flight they're going to have, and he took it. So that makes me think that obviously he's on the IR. He's going to miss the next 3 games. But I think that was like almost a way to silence the critics. Like, said, don't like, because I think last time they're like, why are you putting him out there right away? Like this way, like they kind of almost hope it dies down the pressure on making sure he's okay. He was obviously okay to be on the sideline and make that long trip. If he still had concussion type effects, the doctors wouldn't let him take a long trip like that. I think.
Yeah. So
I think he's looking like he's going to get healthy enough, minus a setback, obviously, or another big concussion, to get back on the field. And I think it's going to be close to that 4-game mark. They might take one more. It depends on their bye weeks and stuff. But I think this is more to let the media pressure die down. Like, is he playing this week? Is he not playing? He's out. Calm down. We're looking at him. We're making sure he's healthy.
Right.
He wants to play. Doctors say he's good.
Will it also depend on what the Dolphins' record is at that time?
Are they 1-2, right?
Yeah, they're 1-2.
So they're gonna, at best, they're
And
gonna
he's
go
not
one.
going to come back until week 8, and you're saying maybe 9. I mean, that's a lot of games for Tim Boyle. If Skyler broke a rib or something, that he's going to miss. He's going to miss a game.
Right.
So Tim Boyle and Huntley coming in. So it's one of those things. That's tough sledding, man. That's tough sledding.
All right, guys, we're gonna move this on. We're really good on time right here. So we thought this would be more compelling. So we're just gonna watch this a little bit. Right now, Bernie and I are playing against each other. We're in the same division. I'm trying to get my first win of the season. It's not gonna happen, it looks like. And we have 5 players combined in our lineups that are playing right now on the Sunday night game. I didn't see what are we? Is the fourth quarter yet? We're right about the fourth quarter.
We are in fourth quarter. Yeah, starting of the fourth quarter.
Start of the fourth, right?
Yep.
So right now I am down. I have 61.4 points to Bernie's 105.94 points. So it looks like for the third straight week, he's going to get close to 110 points or more. His 3 players going tonight is Kirk Cousins, Rashee Rice, and Darnell Mooney, who seems to be the number 1 receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. Nice play there. Yep. So we're just going to talk, and I have Patrick Mahomes and Bijan Robinson, who, whatever. So my projected points is I'm still going to lose by 45 points. We're going to hold out hope here that Mahomes and Bijan Robinson can score 4 touchdowns in this last quarter. What's the score of the game itself? What do we got here?
Yeah, 14-22, KC.
KC. I saw Butker just miss an extra point, if I'm not mistaken. All right.
Yeah, well, it looks like, you wouldn't have won, or you wouldn't be any closer to winning with Kelsey in. You would have 5 points as of now with Mark Andrews had a goose for you earlier in the day. So, no heartbreak not putting Kelsey in.
So the killer for me was, as I had 2, my receivers are my weakest part, and I have 2 monster ones on the bench in Rome Odunze and Juwan Jennings. Picked them up, couldn't pull the trigger because I thought they were going to be salting this way with the run, but they used the play action to get Juwan Jennings going, and he looked awesome. I don't know if he can keep that up. He looked tired. Like, again, these guys who have like their he played and the frustrating thing. Sorry, I know I stopped my sentence in the middle there. The frustrating thing is I put Demarcus Robinson in, thinking that the Rams have to throw all the time, and Robinson was on the field the entire game. I never saw him off the field except maybe for a couple plays, and he was just the guy running the draw the defense away. Another Mooney
Kirk
catch.
Cousins. Look at that.
Another Mooney
was
catch.
Was that 20 yards?
Give or take, yeah.
Oh.
Maybe 17 or so, but yeah, another good catch. So we're just going to talk, we're just going to have our conversation as we're reacting to the game in real time. So let's see. We got another catch here. Yeah,
it's a replay.
Yeah. So while we're doing the 2-point conversation, since this game's not as tight, I want to bring up a game that's going to be tighter. There's no one playing in that matchup tonight, but our other games, we have another game with 2 players that are 0-3. Katie's King George up against Reggie's Lion Eyes. And right now, Lion Eyes is locked into his points at about 81, and he is done. What's that?
Oh, no, go ahead.
And Katie's King George has 1 player to go tomorrow night. Oh, I had it memorized and I forgot who it was. Oh, Brian Robinson Jr. If she gets 10.25 points, give or take, she will come back on one of the Monday nights tomorrow. So that's the game to watch. And that one's going to, both teams are not looking good, but one team's going to be with me at the bottom of the standings. So I know Reggie's had like I said, Lion Eyes has had a lot of losing streaks to start the season. Oh, didn't pick let's pick up. Incomplete pass there by Cousins. It is now 3rd and 7. They are on the Kansas City side of the field, and they're down by 8 points. So they want to try and get this touchdown here. They got to score. I mean, it's not the time of the game where they have to score, but if they want to keep this from getting away from them, they're going to have to score this drive.
Yeah, so it looks like with Katie having Brian Robinson Jr. in, the 10 points will get her the victory for the week's matchup. Brian Robinson in week 1 at Tampa Bay, he had 16.4 points. And in week 2 against the Giants, he had 14.1 points. So he's going up against a little bit tougher defense with Cincinnati. Not too much more difficult, but he should get this 10 points.
So can you pull up the scores for our leagues? What's the score of the Crazy Fish Waddle Away game?
Crazy Fish Waddle Away.
Are they locked in, or they have some players left?
So Waddle Away currently at 39.8 points and Crazy Fish at 71.7. Waddle Away has Kyle Pitts playing right now, 5 points, 5.5 points right now. He does have Jamar Chase on Monday night.
Our start of the week.
Yep. But here's the kicker. It's just like you and I right now. Crazy Fish is starting Burrow. So
that'll hedge that nicely.
Yep, and he's got a nice buffer on it right now. So he's projected, if they both players play out their projections, it should be a final of 55 for Waddle away to 92 for Crazy Fish.
All right. In this, I'm going to get back to that. In this Atlanta game, we just had a long 54-yard kick from Young Shui Koo. So the Sunday night game is at 22-17. Kansas City is up, and they're going to get the ball off the kickoff after the score. All right, getting back to that Waddle away Crazy Fish game. I was going to bring this up later, but we got a little bit of time here to chat in our 2-point conversation.
Chat about it.
So did you notice?
Oh, yes, I did. No, don't even say. I know exactly what you're going to say.
Okay.
Crazy Fish on the waiver wire
was awesome. I love it.
Picking up and dropping the same running back, and he finally made his final decision, and I bet he's kicking himself right now.
No, he wasn't. He was just blocking Waddle away. That was his only goal.
Oh, okay.
Because he had Joe Mixon, and his only was on his team that was even healthy was Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
So he picked up Hubbard on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yep.
He did drop him. I think he might have picked him up again. So, like I said,
I'll pull
I know some of our managers don't like this technique, but I'm going to defend it for a couple reasons. You can't in our league. You can't just pick up and. Oh no! You know what happened? He picked up Hubbard on Wednesday on either right after waivers or for free. He dropped him that same day. Those players go right back to free agents.
Okay, wait. Hold on. So he picked up Chuba Hubbard. He picked him up on the 20th.
That was Wednesday. Friday then. No, he picked him before that though. He picked him on Wednesday.
Crazy Fish. Chuba, no.
Remember his Akers then?
Yeah, he had picked up Akers and dropped Hubbard.
Okay.
So let's see.
But he dropped Akers that same day. Whoever he picked up,
he picked up Chuba Hubbard as a free agent on the 18th. Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever the 18th was.
That was Wednesday.
Right. He picked up Hubbard fresh. Then he picks up. Where is it? Here we go.
He picked up someone else on the 18th. He did two. He picked up and dropped the same player.
So he picked up Hubbard in the morning. He just had an open spot to pick up. Picked up Hubbard in the morning. In the afternoon, he picked up Cam Akers and dropped Hubbard.
Right.
Okay. Then the next day,
let's just stop there real quick.
Okay.
We'll keep going. So the thing is, that's not a block move in a way, because Hubbard, in our league, if you drop the player the same day you pick him up,
right,
he doesn't go back to waivers. He's still a free agent.
Right.
So Hubbard was Hubbard off that. He was blocked for whatever it was, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Right.
Which is still 4 days before the games are played.
Right, which might not have been Crazy Fish's intentions. Crazy Fish, if you're listening, leave a comment and let us know what your intentions were. He might have just been picking up Hubbard because it would have been a smart play to pick him up and play him, knowing Andy Dalton was coming in. Okay, so then he dropped Cam Akers and picked up Antonio Gibson.
On Thursday.
On Thursday. And then the next day, on the 20th, he dropped Antonio Gibson and picked up Chuba Hubbard. And this was early in the morning.
So far on these pickups, the drop of Akers for Gibson made Akers a waiver wire, move to the waiver wire on Thursday, which means he would have been available to be picked up on Saturday, still before the Sunday game. Waddle away had Mixon, and he was questionable all week, but it was trending doubtful. And he knew there was a chance he was going to need to. We even said on our show on Thursday night, as we recorded, that Mixon was. I'm like, you sure Mixon might not play?
Yeah.
So if he was really worried about having a backup for his own player, he could have picked up Akers on Wednesday. And again, that's a little early, but he could have picked up Akers on Saturday.
Yeah.
He was still out there again.
Exactly.
Okay, keep going.
So on the 20th, Crazy Fish then picks up Chuba Hubbard and drops Antonio Gibson.
Now, in this case, Gibson would be on the waivers all the way till next week because his game was a Thursday night game and they were done.
Right. And then on the 21st, he picks up Cam Akers again and drops Chuba Hubbard.
And now that makes Hubbard unavailable to be picked up because by the time he'd clear waivers, it would be after his game, which would kick him off to the Wednesday waiver morning.
Right. And then on the 22nd, is today the 22nd? Today is the 22nd. he dropped Cam Akers and picked up Deonta Foreman, and then then later in the day he dropped Deonta Foreman and picked up Blake Corum, and then a couple hours later he dropped Blake Corum and
did?
picked up Samaje Perine.
Okay. So my point
Oh.
is, so
Yeah.
in this instance, it's more about his opponent, Waddle Away, who had
Are you sure? Because it really looks like Crazy Fish just was so undecided on which running back he was going to pick up.
No. So
Crazy Fish, get in the comments. Crazy Fish, get in the comments.
So the first part of this is he was blocking his opponent. He was blocking his opponent. But
let's be clear. Let's be clear though. Hold on. Let's be clear. This is our speculation. We don't know for sure he was blocking the opponent, unless you have an insight that he told you that.
He didn't tell me, but he wants to get a win. If you have a chance to block your opponent from getting a backup running back.
Okay. No, you're right. It seems like the right strategy to do, but we don't know the intention because we're not Crazy Fish.
My next point to this is if you're Waddle Away and you think at any point I need to get a backup for my running back.
Yeah.
He had 3 opportunities because every day one of those guys that was getting picked up and dropped was available. Chuba Hubbard was available twice or once. Akers was available twice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yes, he blocked the guy, but it's not like you can pick up, drop. You have to pick up and hold him for 18 hours. Pick up, hold him for 18 to 24 hours. Pick up, hold him for 18 to 20. So if once you see the second one, you're like, oh shoot, I got to get on this.
Yeah.
So I understand. I know some people don't like that move, but it's not like it's your fault for not paying attention. And he's paying so much attention. He should get the benefit of that work.
See, okay. And I'm going to agree with the strategy, but I'm going to disagree with the intention. I think he was just looking for a running back and he couldn't make a decision.
Okay. Once the mixing game was over.
And I think that maybe there's a little part of, let me just get Chuba Hubbard because he's a starting running back, And
then because he had Ezekiel Elliott, once the 4:00 game starts, now he's just picking up people to speculate in case someone gets hurt or something.
Yeah. So, but like I said, let's just get in the comments, Crazy Fish. Let's squash this and see what really is going on in that head of yours.
So let's just, for the sake of this conversation here, if he's doing this to make it harder, not impossible, harder for his opponent to field a running back spot to replace an injured player,
right?
Do you see anything wrong with that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
I'm not saying you did. I'm saying that that's the crux of this point for me to make.
Gotcha.
I was thinking about doing it just because it seemed like it was out there to do. Like, I'm going to screw Nick because he doesn't pick up his guy. But it would have been just more entertainment for me. But that was his actual opponent. So to him to make those moves was actually benefiting himself as opposed to just causing chaos.
Yeah. No, I understand. I understand the logic behind it, and I understand the frustration that people might have with it. If you're frustrated about it, leave a comment, and we'll discuss it.
My only point is you have 3 different chances to take care of it on your own instead of, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, whatever. I've already said what it is,
Yeah, I got you.
All right. So because of that, the guy didn't pick up Chuba Hubbard, who would have 24 points instead of Ezekiel Elliott, who had 1 or 2 points.
Right.
Cam Akers had at least 9 points or whatever it was because he scored a touchdown.
Yeah, very true.
So he made him keep his backup in instead of getting a potentially better streaming running back.
Yeah, totally understand and totally agree. Except, he's. Excuse me a second.
Yep.
Except Nick's starting Herbert, and we know Herbert's not going to be a big passing guy. He did get hurt, but they're going to focus on the running game. He's got.
I actually tried to make a trade for him. I tried to trade him Patrick Mahomes. He denied it.
Yeah. He's got Sam Laporta, which Sam Laporta has not shown anything yet this year, so he shouldn't be in the lineup. And he's got 2 tight ends starting. He's got Kyle Pitts. Now, Kyle Pitts is doing something, but not anything that's going to make an impactful difference. So looking at the rosters just straight up, even without Elliott in there, if he had a different running back in there, the roster, I mean, the rosters still look like Crazy Fish should have should win this no matter
Oh
what.
yeah. You don't know that on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You're doing the best you can. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, just the names on the roster, just the
Right.
situations on the roster. It just seems like that it's a better lean for Crazy Fish. So
it was a tough week for Nick because he had Isaiah Pacheco going IR and then Mixon would miss.
Yeah, and Tua, and he's decimated.
He was decimated by injury, but he being that he was so decimated, I thought he should have been a little more aggressive in trying to back up some of those players.
Right. And Nick, if you're listening, can I give Nick a little help here, Mike? Is that okay?
Yeah, we're good at that.
All right. So I need you to waddle over to your bench spots. You've got Mixon out, Pacheco IR, Tua IR, Mozart out, and you've got an empty IR spot, Nick. Put in one of those guys into that IR spot and pick up an extra player, please.
Akers is out there and Hubbard's out there. Put in a big bid on for Wednesday.
Just do it. Who do you think's going to come back? You probably want to put Mixon there. Pacheco might be out for the season. Do you want to risk Tua? Okay.
All right, so I'm checking on this Kansas City game. The Falcons got the ball back. They're down 5 with the ball, 10.5 minutes to go. Right now it's 1st and 10 at their own 28-yard line or so. Looks like it's Algier time. That's what they do. Give it to Algier as much as possible.
Yeah.
Our game is... Go ahead.
That was a page in the playbook that Arthur Blank left in. And,
right.
Raheem Morris
Arthur Smith,
Arthur Smith left it in, and Raheem forgot to take it out.
All right, so our score here right now, Bernie's up by 48 points, projected to win by 48 points, 47 points or so. So this one's looking like this one's a wrap in terms of our fantasy matchup. This NFL game, though, might come down to, can Kansas City have another fourth quarter comeback? We will see. Kyle Pitts, he needs only 75 more points for you, Nick. You have a chance.
Waddle away. You getting some points here,
Got some points. All right, while we're thinking about it here, let's get in some early waiver wire targets as we saw a lot of running backs got dropped this week over and over again. So let's get in some early waiver wire targets. What do you have for your waiver wire targets,
Well, I'm gonna lean on the guys that are definitely out there and that are professionals and they don't want to keep losing. I'm gonna lean on the Carolina studs. Pick up Andy Dalton if you need help. If you've got Tua hurt, if you've got Justin Herbert on your lineup, put Tua in the IR. Go get Andy Dalton. Okay. Staying in Carolina, they're playing Cincinnati next week. Cincinnati is a middle of the road defense. Chuba Hubbard is out there. Put in some money on these guys. Don't break the bank for them. But put in a good amount, because if you're in need, you're in need. You don't want to start collecting these losses too early here. And then as my wide receiver, how much faith do you have in Will Levis? How much faith do you have in Tennessee?
None.
DeAndre Hopkins did look better. Whatever little injury he had is kind of wearing off. He got the most of the target share. As long as it looks like Will can make those throws to DeAndre. DeAndre's not washed. He's not going to be your number one, but he's a perfectly okay wide receiver 2 or 3 on your squad. And they're playing Miami next.
Okay. So other players I have on our early waiver wire thoughts here is Tutu Atwell was all over the field today for the Rams, including throwing a nice pass that ended up being broken up upon replay. But he was Demarcus Robinson was the guy running the outs to bring the safety up, and Tutu was the one running by. So he was the one getting a lot of the more valuable targets, in my opinion, today. Jalen Naylor, for the 3rd straight week, had another touchdown. He also had another one called back that was longer, but in all fairness, the penalty that was called is what sprung him open, as Aaron Jones did a slant to pick the defender and stuck his butt out to block him, and it worked good to get Naylor open. But they ran a play to get Naylor open down the sideline. So he's a nice complementary receiver, an emergency start, not someone you're looking as an automatic start, but he's involved in the offense and he scores every week. Chuba Hubbard was already mentioned. Trey Tucker is he's getting the high leverage targets as too. He's getting the downfield work today. A lot of their catches today were in comeback mode, but he's been on the field quite a bit today. And Jacoby Myers also had a nice day. So these are just other receivers that are on the field for the Raiders, and it looks like their running game is non-existent. So it looks like they're going to be a passing team. We said last week that they led the league in passing, at least in terms of percentage of plays, and were last in terms of rushing. They went against the Panthers today, who were much better on offense, which might have changed the game script, which we mentioned before. But looks like passing is going to be the way the Raiders are going to move the ball. So there's two other receivers on that team that are getting work. Dallas Goedert's back out there, and he always does. They're kind of like San Francisco. Whenever there's one receiver down, the other guys are pretty obvious that they're going to step up. With A.J. Brown down, Devontae Smith had a good game last week. He started off this game well, and once he got down, it was all Goddard. It was all Goddard. Yeah. So that's one of those teams. Hurts he just kind of has his 3 or 4 guys, and if one's missing, then it just narrows the target share to the 3 remaining. Cole Kmet makes me nervous, but he seemed to have a late connection with Caleb Williams, who was throwing the ball a lot better today. Again, though, still making mistakes, fumbling and throwing interceptions. And Aaron Rodgers, don't forget that game was Thursday night, but he looked a lot better. Now, I know it was against the Patriots, but still, it looks like he might be kind of rounding into form, at least worth holding on to the bench instead of your Staffords and other players like that.
That all sounds perfectly reasonable. I love it. The only person that I would have a question on that is Tutu Atwell. Just because the Rams did look good today, but can Stafford keep that intensity up? I think DeMarcus is going to be the one going forward. I think McVay is going to kind of change up the game plan a little bit. And get that going. Would you trade out the 2? Would you rather have Tutu or DeMarcus?
Because I spent fab on DeMarcus, I'm not looking to drop. I know. I would say they're even enough that I would want one of them. I don't want both, and I wouldn't trade one for the other.
Gotcha. Okay.
If they were both out there right now,
mm-hmm.
maybe Tutu because he had a better game this week because that's what you're kind of coming off of.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough for me to definitely say him over the other.
Yeah, and then the only other thing I'd say is Goddard looked good. I watched
he had a lot of great catches too.
A lot of that, yeah. He had some just his hands were on fire. I mean, he really couldn't drop it, and he was a tough son of a.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can we curse on this show?
I'm trying not to. If it comes out, it comes out. But I'm trying not to.
I don't think we have, but I don't know if that was an option or not. Okay. Early waiver wires.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, guys. So I want to thank you guys so very much for watching another episode of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League podcast. Thanks for joining me and Mr. Bernie. Don't forget, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube Music for all of our audio feeds. Just search Wingman the League on those platforms, and we'll shoot right up to the top of your search. If you want to check out our video feeds, go to wingmanentertainment.net/podcast and go to our YouTube page at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, notification bell, leave a comment. Let me know how much of a jerk move it is to pick up players to block your opponent. And also let other people know how dumb they are not picking up backups for their hurt players before their games start. We're going to have a this or that side of this discussion this time around. So with that being said, guys, thank you so very much. May your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
Utilize that IR spot.
And we'll see you next time.